Welcome back, troops. Let's tab 59. Just coming off a 4-miler. I've been out tabbing proper for a while, so always break myself in with a little walk around the village, 4 miles. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your support for the channel so far. If you haven't subscribed, please could you consider subscribing. Give me a thumbs up if you can, and the comments, brilliant. I love the comments. I always read through them and I try to reply to every comment I can. So the title of this video suggesting crime and punishment in the British Army. So first of all, I'm no lawyer, and I'm certainly not a barrack room lawyer. I can only talk to you about my experiences as a soldier over the 38-year period that I was in, from what I've seen happen to people, and once or twice to myself. Now, I'm not going to be talking about things that happen to you, punishment that happens to you while you're in basic training. That can happen, of course, but I'm going to be talking about when you finish your basic training and you're at your battalion or your regiment, and you do something wrong and you get your wrist slapped or worse. So the lowest level, lowest form really, I suppose, of punishment in the army is to receive extra duties. Oh, we're back here. So extra duties, that's things like guard or cookhouse, any duty that's on top of what you're normally expected to do. Every soldier gets a duty, guard or whatever, a couple a month or one a month, whatever it is, depends on the strength of your unit. But there's always that's about the sun now. There's always duties that have to be done, and they can be dished out by an extra duty, that is, by the lowest level, a lance corporal, lance bombardier, right up through junior NCO ranks, senior NCO ranks to warrant officers and officers. And then normally for real misdemeanors. An example could be you've gone on parade, someone's picked you up for a haircut and told you get your hair sorted out. 2 or 3 days later you still haven't got your hair cut, you get seen by that guy again. He could well issue you with extra duties. He could say, right, take 2 extra duties or 5 extra duties, whatever he feels necessary. So that's a good example maybe. Or you're skiving around the back of the garages having a fag and you've been caught a couple of times doing it and been told about it a couple of times, then you might get extra duties for that. And that doesn't go on your record, you just get a couple of extra guard duties that month or the next month. So that's the lowest form of punishment. The next one up, now there's different terminology from different times and from different units, so I'm only going to talk about the terminology that I'm aware of. Towards the end of my service, you got AGI'd, which was an army regulation, an army AGI it was called. You're going to be AGI'd for whatever you've done. But going back before that, it was called, we was referred to as warned for office. So that could be something a little bit more serious, where you would actually go up in front of your OC for the offence you've committed, and that would be something like maybe you're down the naffy, you've got drunk, you're a bit rowdy, you've smashed a couple of glasses, knocked the table over, or maybe even had a bit of a scrap with somebody, and that will be referred to as warned for office. So the NCO or whoever saw you committing that offence would warn you for office, and that's a term they use, right? Smith, you're warned for office. So you would then have to go up eventually in front of your OC. The officer commanding is normally a major of your company, squadron or battery. So they would fill out a form called, or clerks would fill out a form, an Army Form 252. So again, it could be referred to, rather than just saying you're warned for office, you could write 252 in. So the form would be filled out, and basically all your details, the person that saw you do it, who's charging you with that offence, and obviously a statement of what happened, times, dates, where it happened, what happened, etc. So, like I say, it could be in the naffy, having a punch up, or knocking some tables over, just being rowdy. It could be coming back downtown, walking through the guard room and abusing the guard or the RP staff, drunk and disorderly, that sort of thing. If it's not too serious, there's no ABH, GBH too much involved, you'll go in front of the OC on his orders. So on the day of going on orders in front of your OC, you'd be in working dress, smart working dress. You'd be outside his office, there'd be an escort with you, maybe an NCO or whatever, or maybe even a regimental policeman. You'd remove your headdress, you remove a belt if you was wearing it, so belt and berry off, and then you'd be brought up to attention and you'd be marched in pretty quick. It'd be like left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, mark time, halt, and left turn or right turn to face the OC, with the escort marching that fast with you. Normally Sergeant Major would march you and shouting those words of command. So you stand in front of the OC, charge would be read out, you'd get a chance to say your piece, and then eventually the OC would say, right, you're guilty under section 69 of the Army Act 1959 or whatever the act was. They'd have researched that under a military law, and he would give you what they called an award. How does that work? You're not getting awarded. It basically the sentence you're going to get, and that could be anything. You could actually get a detention sent to into detention, which normally meant going into your own guard room in the back. They'd have a couple of cells, and you might be banged up in there for 3-4 days, a week, whatever. I think the maximum you could get without going to court martial was 28 days, and I think the CO had to give you that amount. But anyway, we're talking about OC's orders, so you get the award. You get the award of whatever it is. It could be restrictions of privileges, it could just be a fine and damages for the stuff that you've done. So, and that would be it. Now, that would be on your record to a degree, but it wouldn't be on your main record. In other words, it wouldn't, if you went out on OC's orders, that back in the day wouldn't go on your record and prohibit you from, say, good conduct towards your long service good conduct medal. However, if it was a more serious offence, then, and there were certain offences that could only be dealt with by the commanding officer, normally a lieutenant colonel. CO's orders, bit more serious. Like I say, if you go on CO's orders and you're guilty, then that would be recorded on your record, and that would go against you getting your long service good conduct medal. Good conduct medal, long service good conduct medal, is a 15-year period of undetected crime, as we called it. And if you had 15 years of nothing on your record, no CO's orders, no anything else like that, then you could apply for, the clerks would apply for your long service good conduct medal. If you have a misdemeanour, that stops. So then your 15 years has got to start again from the time of that sentence being passed. So it could knock you back for that. I know a lot of really good guys that don't have their long service good conduct medals. So if you're on CO's orders, like I say, then it's pretty much the same. You're marched in, no belt and berry, no headdress. You'll be marched in, probably by the RSM this time, with a couple of people escorting you front and rear. Left, right, left, right, left, right, in, mark time, halt, left turn, right turn, whatever. And you stand in front of the commanding officer. Again, he reads out the charge that's against you, and any witnesses can come forward and give their bit. And eventually, when he decides that you are a guilty twat, because you are, he'll say to you, do you accept my award? Before he tells you what it is, he'll say, do you accept my award, or do you want to go to court martial? Now, 99.9% of the time, you do not want to be going to court martial, because then it's a whole serious can of worms. So I say 99.9% of the time, you're going to say, I accept your award, sir. And then the commanding officer will tell you what his award is going to be. And it's going to be a little bit more severe than going on OC's orders generally. And it could be up to 28 days detention. As I say, in the guard room at the back, you have a few cells, and in you go. And I'm talking mainly about Germany when I come to this next bit, really, but you get banged up in there, and that's you for your period of detention. You're double marched to your meals every day. I believe after a meal, you're marched back rather than double marched. And you spend your day just working. Leaf clearing, sweeping the parade square, weeding the running track, all the sort of naff job just to mess you about all day. And then, of course, you've got a little bit of kit in your prison cell that has to be laid out and immaculate every morning. You're stood by your bed in the cell. The officer comes in with his escort. Any complaints and requests, blah blah blah. He'll inspect you and inspect the cell and make sure everything's clean and tidy. And you're scrubbing the toilets out in the cell and stuff like that. So, interestingly, if you do get a custodial sentence, if you like, you're put into nick in the guard room for up to 28 days. Whilst you're in there, your wages stop, or you get it very, very greatly reduced. Now, I can remember out in Germany that certainly single soldiers has got a small allowance each week. They didn't get their full pay. I'm not sure what happened if you were a married soldier out in Germany in those days, you know, with your wife in a married quarter or whatever. I don't think they stopped all your pay. I think you got a certain allowance to pay for your upkeep for your wife, etc. And also, if you got a custodial sentence or detention, that time was taken off of your service. So if you had 1 year left in the army to serve before you could discharge and leave, that period of time in NIC, say it's 28 days, that would stop. So you'd had 28 days to get added on the end of the year you've got to serve. Obviously, the next level up from CO's orders would be a court-martial, a full-blown court-martial, and I've got no experience of that at all. Most garrisons used to have a court-martial centre, and before you went to court-martial, you might be under close arrest in your local guard room cell until you come up for court-martial. Going up on court-martial, all I can remember from my time was you'd be in full number 2 dress. That's our second best uniform. It's a brown sort of material jacket and trousers, shirt and tie. And you'd go in, and it's a bit like a courtroom. There's a panel in front of you, which is basically like a magistrate's court. I can't remember how many officers, maybe 3 or 4. They're a bit like magistrates. You'd have legal representation there. All the witnesses would be heard for the prosecution, defence, etc. And at the end of it, out you'd go. And it could last more than 1 day, a court-martial. Depends on the severity of the offence. And then, of course, the officers would deliberate and they would come back with your sentence. Now, if you're going to get a custodial sentence and discharge, or just discharge, I tell you, if you've got a custodial sentence, instead of being in the guard room cells at your camp, you would go to the military detention centre, which is in Colchester Garrison. And that's a proper army prison, if you like. They call it a detention centre. And in there you'd go for your period of time. And I believe you could get up to 6 months, maybe more. At the end of that time, you could get soldier on. So you might get, say, 6 months detention at Colchester. You'd come out and you'd go back to serve in your unit. Or you could get your period of detention there at Colchester and then be discharged from there. It depends on what the award you're given by the court-martial. Obviously, I've had no experience of being in Colchester detention centre, but I believe it's quite a strict regime. But you are retrained. I don't think you get so much dirty jobs. I think they actually retrain you. It's a bit like going maybe through a bit of basic training again. So a lot of PT, drill, things like that. And it's supposed to, especially if you're going to soldier on at the end of your sentence, it's supposed to be that, you know, you go back to your battalion, your regiment, and you're a better soldier for it in one way. So that's just touching on a bit of crime and punishment within the British Army. Like I say, I'm talking mainly about the 70s, 80s, 90s. I did leave the Army in 2015, but at that stage I really wasn't involved in people being charged for offences. I was in a training establishment, and we didn't see that sort of thing very much. So I can't speak with full authority on any of this. It's just my old experience. But I know there's going to be some of you guys out there, some of you veterans out there, maybe even from the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force. You've got different things going on when you served. But I'd like to hear the comments. If you've got anything, please bang it in the comments and let me know of either you've done it. No names, no pack drill. You can always say, my friend Smith got done for this, and we know what you mean. But yes, I did get charged. I got charged for drunk and disorderly when I was a young soldier, and I got 7 days restrictions of privileges. That was another sort of punishment you could get, restrictions of privilege, ROPs. And that basically, after your working day or before you went to work, you have your breakfast, and then you had to go out and do some jobs down the guard room before you went on parade. Then you do your normal working day. I think your lunch hour was, you know, quick lunch and then do a bit more work at the guard room. And then after work, back down the guard room, and the provost sergeant or whoever would give you menial tasks till about 9:30 at night. And then you'd have to go upstairs in your block, get changed out your working dress into your number 2 dress, immaculate, ball boots, etc. Parade back down the guard room, and he'd inspect you. And if he was happy, he'd let you go to bed. If he wasn't happy, he'd send you back up the block to correct anything wrong with your turnout. So I thought I'd better mention restrictions of privileges. Oh, one last one. I've got to tell you about this one. You'll remember this. Show parades. Normally, if on a course or in basic training, you might get a show parade. So if you're picked up for something on an inspection, a room inspection, or your turnout, you could get, right, show parade tonight. And you would have to turn up at the guard room at a certain time. I think it was 18:30 hours outside the guard room with whatever was wrong corrected. So that was an interesting one, show parades. But that was very low level stuff. So please, as I said, if you've got any experiences, let me know in the comments. I'd be very interested to hear your experiences of crime and punishment in the British Army, or the Royal Navy, or the Royal Air Force. We're all brother veterans together. But please let me know. Till the next time then, troops, thanks for staying tuned in. Thanks for your comments and subscribing and your thumbs up, etc. But till the next time, let's tap.